The morning sky was heavy with gray clouds when the earth cracked open inside him again. Not loudly, not all at once, but the way grief does when it never really leaves, quiet, patient, waiting for the right moment to remind you who it is. He stood alone at his father's grave, the cold air biting his hands, the smell of wet soil mixing with old memories, and he wondered, not for the first time, how a man could feel so full of responsibility and yet so completely empty at the same time. Life had not asked for his permission before it collapsed. It never does. One day he was a son with a father to lean on, a husband with shared dreams, and the next he was a single dad with tired eyes, a shrinking bank account, and a silence at home that screamed louder than any argument ever could. His father had been the last pillar holding everything together, and when that pillar fell, something inside him cracked in a way that could not be repaired. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when hope feels impossible, take a moment right now to like this video, comment, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to the channel, Gentle Hearts, because stories like this remind us that even broken lives can be rebuilt. He came to the cemetery every month, sometimes every week when the weight became too heavy. It was the only place where he allowed himself to stop pretending. At home, he had to be strong. He had to be the father who smiled through exhaustion, who packed lunches with love even when the fridge was almost empty, who said everything would be okay even when he was no longer sure that was true. Here, beside a simple stone with his father's name carved into it, he let the mask fall. He spoke in his mind, replaying advice he wished he had followed, questions he never asked, apologies that came too late. His father had been a man of few words but deep presence, the kind who fixed broken things with his hands and broken hearts with quiet understanding. Losing him felt like losing the last map to navigate life. That morning felt different before he even noticed why. The air carried a strange stillness, as if the world was holding its breath. As he adjusted the wilted flowers at the grave, he sensed movement nearby. Cemeteries often had visitors, but something about this presence made his skin prickle. When he finally looked up, he saw her. She stood a few steps away, dressed simply, her posture calm yet heavy with emotion. She was not crying loudly or making a scene. She was standing in silence, hands folded, eyes fixed on the same grave, as if it belonged to her as much as it did to him. For a brief moment, confusion turned into irritation. Graves were personal, pain was personal. He wondered who she was and why she was standing there, sharing a grief he believed belonged only to him. He cleared his throat, preparing to say something polite but firm, when he noticed the way her face softened. There was recognition there, not of him, but of the name carved in stone. Her eyes traced the letters slowly, reverently, as if each one carried weight. She looked like someone who had carried a long journey inside her, someone who had waited a long time to arrive at this exact moment. Life had trained him to expect disappointment, so his first instinct was to withdraw emotionally. He had learned the hard way that hope could be dangerous. Raising a child alone had hardened him in places he did not like to admit. Every bill, every sleepless night, every unanswered job application had chipped away at the man he used to be. He was surviving, not living, and survival left little room for strangers and their mysteries. Yet something kept him rooted in place. He thought about his son at home, still asleep, curled under a blanket too thin for winter. He thought about how his father used to say that people entered our lives for reasons we didn't understand until much later. He had always brushed that off as old wisdom meant to comfort, but standing there now, he felt the truth of it pressed gently against his chest. The woman eventually turned toward him, her expression composed but filled with emotion that had been carefully controlled for years. She looked at him the way people do when they recognize pain in someone else because it mirrors their own. In that moment, he felt exposed, as if she could see every failure, every fear, every night he lay awake wondering how long he could keep going. She did not rush, she did not intrude, she simply existed there, sharing the space, sharing the silence. And sometimes silence is the most powerful language there is. As minutes passed, memories began to stir inside him. He remembered his father mentioning someone years ago, briefly, almost reluctantly. A story left unfinished. A chapter closed too abruptly. At the time, he had been too busy building his own life to ask questions. Regret, he had learned, was not always loud. Sometimes it arrived quietly, disguised as curiosity that came far too late. The woman's presence cracked open something buried deep. The cemetery, with its rows of names and dates, felt less like a place of endings and more like a crossroads of untold stories. He realized that his father, the man he thought he knew completely, might have carried secrets, sacrifices, and choices he never spoke about. As the wind picked up, rustling the trees, the woman finally began to move closer to the grave, placing fresh flowers beside the old ones. They were carefully chosen, vibrant against the gray surroundings, a small but deliberate act of love. Watching her, he felt a strange pull between resentment and gratitude. Whoever she was, she had cared enough to remember. His life, for years, had been a series of losses stacked one on top of another. First his wife, whose absence left an ache that never fully healed. Then his father, whose steady presence had anchored him through the storm. Each loss had forced him to grow up faster, harder, to become someone who measured life in responsibilities instead of dreams. He had stopped believing that good surprises were meant for him. But standing there, something shifted. The woman's arrival marked the beginning of a truth that would ripple through every part of his existence. Not all secrets were meant to destroy. Some were meant to heal, even if the healing hurt at first. What she carried was not just a revelation about his father, but a missing piece of his own identity, a reminder that the past, no matter how buried, still shaped the future. As the day wore on, the weight in his chest felt different. Still heavy, but no longer suffocating. He felt the faintest spark of something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in a long time, possibility. Not the loud, reckless kind, but a quiet, steady hope that whispered maybe, just maybe, his life was not defined solely by what he had lost. Over the following days, the memory of that encounter refused to fade. He found himself replaying every detail, every expression, every unspoken emotion. At work, his mind wandered. At home, while helping his son with homework or tucking him into bed, he wondered how many truths remained hidden beneath the surface of his own life. He thought about the lessons his father taught him, not just about fixing things, but about standing up when life knocked you down, about choosing compassion even when the world felt unfair. Slowly, the struggles he faced began to take on a different meaning. The overdue bills, the exhaustion, the loneliness, they were still there. But they no longer felt like punishments. They felt like chapters in a story that had not reached its ending yet. He began to notice small changes within himself. A willingness to ask for help. A courage to imagine a future that extended beyond survival. The mysterious woman, without realizing it, had reopened a door he had sealed shut. Through that door came memories of his father's kindness, his sacrifices, his quiet strength. He began to understand that his father's life had been larger than the role he played at home, that love often took forms we didn't recognize until it was gone. As weeks passed, the truth she revealed continued to unfold in ways he never expected. It reshaped his understanding of family, of loyalty, of forgiveness. It challenged him to confront his own fears of failure and abandonment. Most importantly, it reminded him that his son was watching, learning not from what he said, but from how he lived. He realized that healing did not mean forgetting the pain. It meant carrying it differently. It meant allowing space for joy to exist alongside sorrow. His father's grave was no longer just a place of mourning. It became a symbol of continuity, of the invisible threads that connected past, present, and future. By the time he stood there again, weeks later, the sky was clearer. The air felt lighter. He brought his son with him this time, watching as the boy placed a small stone on the grave, a gesture of remembrance learned somewhere deep in his heart. In that moment, he felt something settle into place. The story that began with loss was quietly transforming into one of resilience. If this story has touched your heart so far, if it has reminded you of someone you've lost or a hope you thought was gone, please take a moment near the end of this video to like, comment, and share it. Your engagement helps stories like this reach others who need them, and it means more than you know to the Gentle Hearts community. Life did not magically become easy. Challenges did not disappear overnight. But he was no longer walking alone in the dark. The revelation at his father's grave gave him a renewed sense of purpose. It taught him that love leaves traces, even when people are gone, and that sometimes the most profound changes begin with a stranger and a silent moment. Before this story ends, I have a special request for you. Please comment below with one word that this story made you feel: hope, sadness, healing, or love, because your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. And as the screen fades and the music softens, remember this: even in the quietest places, even among graves and goodbyes, life can still surprise you. Sometimes, the truth we fear discovering is the very thing that saves us.